Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Maria Noesi, and I'm the head of marketing for Kognito. We are very excited to be hosting today's discussion in partnership with Active Minds. During the next hour, you will hear from student leaders from schools across the country who will share their experience with the COVID-19 pandemic and the challenges that students are facing as they return to campus. However, before I welcome our students, we want to take a few seconds to tell you a little bit about Active Minds and Kognito. So I want to welcome Robin Suchi, who is a chapter manager at Active Minds and my co-host for today. So Robin.
Yeah, thanks so much, Maria. Thanks so much for everyone joining us. Really excited to get to the conversation with our wonderful students here. So for those who aren't familiar, Active Minds is a national nonprofit organization dedicated to young adult mental health on high school and college campuses. So we support students in doing suicide prevention work, mental health advocacy, educational programming, trainings, all of those fun things. And we have a variety of other programs as well, such as speakers who travel the country or in this world give remote presentations and traveling suicide intervention displays. So our whole mission is really letting students share their experiences, knowing that peer-to-peer interaction is what's the most powerful piece of mental health help seeking. So our students are really thriving. We've been around for over 16 years. We have chapters at almost 600 schools around the country. And between our chapter presence and our other programs, we reach over 8 million students a year, which is we're really proud of. We're really proud to work with really fabulous leaders. And this year especially, we're really happy to have their guidance as we, a little more organized than spring, move into a hybrid remote term ahead of us. So we are actually next week launching a variety of programs that students can participate in online to support the needs of their peers during this COVID remote hybrid era, and additionally during this period of kind of unrest and social injustice and racial unrest. So we're working with students to make sure BIPOC folks on their campus have mental health supports and appropriate mental health supports. I will, I think, leave it on at that for what is Active Minds. I have a little bit more to share later, but I want to make sure we get as much time with the students as we can.
Thank you, Robin. And for those of you who are not familiar with Kognito, over the last decade, we really have partnered with schools to enhance the communication skills of their faculty, their staff, and their students through experiential and practice-based tools on how to have difficult conversations and really build relationships on campus to promote healthy behaviors. And we cover a range of topics from mental health and suicide prevention to sexual misconduct prevention, in the future, alcohol and other drugs and other topics. So we're very happy to be part of this conversation and to welcome our students to this discussion. So the last piece I will go over before I turn it over is a little bit of housekeeping items. So today's presentation is being recorded. You will be receiving a copy of the recording within 24 hours of the webinar. As an attendee, you are also on listen-only mode, so we can't hear you. However, please use the question box on the GoToWebinar interface to submit questions throughout the discussion. We have left time to incorporate those in. And the last piece that I will invite you to do as we start the conversation is to share with us, what are you hoping to gain from today's discussion? What would you like to hear from our panelists? Just give us a couple of comments through the question box, and we'll make sure to monitor that as we go through the questions today. So we're ready to dive in. So now I want to invite our panelists to tell us a little bit about themselves. Again, this is a very impressive group of student leaders who are doing a lot on campus to advance and advocate for student mental health and other initiatives. So I want to welcome you all and start off with Alan. Tell us a little bit about you.
Hey everyone, my name is Alan and I'm a rising junior at Princeton studying financial engineering. I do a lot of mental health advocacy on campus, primarily through student government. So I lead a mental health task force that's worked with our school's counseling on centralizing a lot of information about how to access mental health resources on campus.
Thank you. Welcome, Alan. Trey?
I'm Trey. I'm a rising senior at the University of Dubuque with a major in psychology and a minor in sociology. As you see, I'm the Active Minds president on my college campus. And speaking, going around campus, just I love spreading positivity. It's a little bit that I do a lot.
Awesome. Welcome, Trey. Kama?
Hi, I'm Kama. I'm an incoming junior at the University of Pittsburgh studying neuroscience, psychology, and French. I've been involved with Active Minds and mental health advocacy on campus since the start of my freshman year, and this upcoming year I'm going to be our chapter's president. Through our chapter, we've done a lot of mental advocacy with the counseling center. We're currently working with student government board just to make resources a lot more accessible to the student body, and also to spread tips and advice for various occasions like, finals week and all that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Last but not least, Cameron.
Hey everyone, thank you for being here. I'm Cameron Zuhuri. I'm a sophomore at Santa Monica College. I'm currently studying psychology while also following the pre-med track. I'm the chapter president of our campus, and in the advocacy we like to focus on our campus is really partnering with specialized groups such as the Adelantes group, Black Collegians, and the Scholars Program.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So now with that, we're going to get started with our first question that we'll dive in today. And the question is, how do you think the COVID-19 pandemic and of course the social justice movement that are happening across the country, how is that impacting student mental health in this moment? And I actually want to have Robin kick us off. Active Minds recently did a survey with some great data findings. If you can just sort of set the tone for today's discussion on what the data is showing.
Yeah, so in April, kind of seeing this immediate need of trying to understand en masse what students were feeling and experiencing, Active Minds launched a survey open widely across all students. We got responses from about 2,000 college students, about 3,000 students in total, about the impact of COVID on their mental health. And what we saw, I'll say wasn't entirely unexpected, but still startling and still a real call to action for us and for our chapter leaders across the country. So 80% of students experienced a negative impact on their mental health based on COVID. 20% said their mental health is significantly worsened. A lot of them said that actually one of their biggest concerns in that moment was academics. So making sure that figuring out what was happening with their grades and their finals, especially in the time that we were in the spring with a lot of people having grad school kind of on the hook and trying to figure out what that looked like. But kind of most startling to me and to my colleagues was this 55% of students not knowing where to seek help. So that's a different number than we would usually see if folks were on campus. And on campus to some extent, you're surrounded by higher ed professionals who have dedicated their lives to helping students, whether it be academically or financially or spiritually or with their mental health. But now kind of in their remote homes with parents who they might be having a conversation for the first time that they are seeking therapy and need, a private space once a week to continue having therapy. Or students who had worked really hard to set up their self-care routine and their support networks, kind of without that immediately. So that statistic is one that we were particularly interested in exploring more, and we've been doing a lot of work to work with our students to make sure that they're pointing folks in the right direction, whether their counseling centers have remote accessibility, whether they're able to have teletherapy, and how to continue to be support networks as of friends. Our full survey data, I believe the link might be somewhere on the slide, but if you go to activeminds.org/student survey, you can see the full report of data as well as a nice infographic with some shareable bits. So I'd encourage you to take a look there more, and we're looking to do a follow-up to the survey this fall, so keep an eye out for that as well.
Wonderful. And for attendees, we're going to make sure you have that link in the follow-up email so that you have that in your inbox. So thank you, Robin. And I now want to open it up to the students to share more about what was happening on the ground and how that data translates to, the actual impact that it's having on the individuals that are here today. So Cameron, I want to invite you to share with us.
From what I've seen, it's really hard to translate that same almost necessary human interaction online. And as a result, you will feel lonely. And I've experienced this, my friends have, and my peers on campus, that period of isolation, it makes you feel like you're alone, and no one wants to feel alone in this situation. And that's really challenging. And from this, you can feel depressed, stressed, especially about your academics. Your anxiety could go up. It's just a big pool of challenges that at some times can be overwhelming for students. And seeing that number, that 55% don't know where to seek help, is almost, it hurts. So.
Thank you, thank you. Before we transition off to the next question, would anybody else like to add any commentary, and then we can move
on? One thing I'd like to say that it's like a situation that's kind of unique to this pandemic, which kind of perpetuates all the challenges and emotions that Cameron just described, is typically when you encounter stress, you encounter loneliness, you have coping mechanisms or ways of taking care of yourself. But the pandemic caused a lot of places to close, gyms, rec areas, cafes, bookstores, and a lot of these are environments in which people go to for comfort and for like a place to like evaluate and like restart. And so having all of that ripped out from our hands immediately once the pandemic, like once everything started closing, definitely contributed to like the increase in negative impact on mental health as the pandemic continued.
Thank you so much. So I want to transition off to the next question, which is, what was your individual experience as you were transitioning in the spring and summer when all of this was happening and you were figuring out and responding to school closures or any other thing? What was the impact you felt? And I want to start off with Trey, if you want to get us started on that question.
Yeah, so transitioning from face-to-face and going to online was definitely a big challenge for me personally. I do not thrive off of, online classes. And, I love being face-to-face and making those human connections with not only my classmates, but students around me that's on campus. And I spent most of my day like in the library. That's where all my friends and everyone peers would see me at. It was definitely tough, and I felt alone, like I didn't have anyone at all. It was just days sitting in my room, logging into my computer online, and that's just what my life was for the rest of spring semester and the summer. I also took summer courses, and it was definitely just, not being able to, talk with my students because I didn't really use Zoom or Microsoft Teams that other students were using to see the faces. Mine was just based on just me and the computer, but definitely I did feel alone a lot. So something I had to do was go on, just step away from my computer screen and go on a walk.
Awesome. And you're also a residence hall staff. So what was the impact? Were you on campus while students were leaving? What was that like?
Yes, I was a residence assistant this past spring, and with many students who left home, and then there was, I would say, maybe a total of like 50, 60 students who remained on campus, just they couldn't go home due to personal reasons or financial reasons and just not really knowing where to go back to. But we definitely were kind of isolated, not being able to, go to each other's room or see each other like in the hallways. It was basically just, staying in your room because obviously there's nothing else to do, nothing's open. So knowing that like there was people in the building, but you didn't get to go see them was really frustrating as well. But it was challenging. But now and then we'll still knock on the door and just say hi and then sleep. But it was tough.
I can imagine. I think, living on campus is one of the, one of the things that we all look forward to as college students, and being able to just have a neighbor that you can hop into and chit chat. So I can imagine that's very difficult. Kama, can I invite you also to share as well?
Yeah. So last spring, I was studying abroad in Paris for the entire semester, and I was called back on like March 6th, and they gave me 3 days to come back to the US, like to find a ticket, pack everything. And all of that was really hectic. So in the midst of all that, I was heavily disappointed. But because it was so fast paced, I really didn't have enough time to process what just happened. I came back home. I didn't even go back to my apartment. So there was a rapid change in environments compared to like my freshman year of college. So I continued my French semester from home, and then I also took summer classes. And in terms of my mental health, it took me like a good 3 to 4 months to actually cope and like understand what had just happened. There was a lot of like ups and downs with like motivation, loneliness. I was trying to look for connections, and yes, virtual connections are great, but I needed something to ground myself, and I love my family, but that's normally a space that friends tend to fill for me. So it was a mess. Thankfully, I'm back on campus now, and I've been able to regroup myself a bit. But I will say this, the hecticness of everything, and also the intensity of the COVID news, the spikes, and just everything that was happening just overwhelmed me for months on end.
Again, another big milestone as a college student is to travel abroad and have that experience. So to have that cut short is also very difficult to process. So thank you for sharing. I also want to invite Cameron to share with us.
My experience was almost it was almost like a burden. Everything, first off, my learning style, I had to alter that. For how many years I've been in school, I learned this specific way, and I was expected to shift that in the matter of a week. And then for my summer class, the extent of my professor was just text on a computer screen. I never spoke with them, never met with them. So that was getting used to that is a weird thing. And like Trey, I thrive on in-person learning. And what I enjoy most about SMC is that it is a junior college, so the class sizes they tend to be smaller than other universities. So you have that opportunity to get close with your professors, speak with them, go to their office hours, and just sit down and talk. So as the spring and summer semester went by, I felt like my circle of people I can trust and look up to for advice got a lot smaller.
Thank you so much, Cameron. And Alan, would you like to share with us as well as we wrap up this question?
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing that was really tough, especially like having to leave campus mid-semester, is that the setting changed, everything really changed, but the expectations didn't change at the same time. So like a lot of us had like projects that we'd started, in January, February, or March. We had big assignments. A lot of times professors were kind of expecting the same output from us or even more. And trying to do that from home or from wherever we were, not being able to collaborate with friends really made it a lot more difficult. Even going to like the summer where a lot of us are taking classes, we might have jobs or internships right now. And I think trying to fulfill all the same responsibilities without that kind of in-person interaction or not being in the setting where they normally happen it's been tough for a lot of people.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing on this question. So we're going to transition to the next question, which is also coming up in the question box. Really wanting to know what did your school do to step up and support student mental health and mental wellness during this time of transition for you all? And again, I'm going to invite Kama if you want to start us off on this question.
So the University of Pittsburgh Counseling Center transitioned really well to online services. They started offering telehealth. Walking hours also turned online. There were workshops and webinars that were also offered on the side for kids to access throughout the end of spring semester and the summer. However, I will say, even though these services changed and new services were provided, there was little to no contact with students that these services were available. My friends and I were talking with a lot of our other friends who are students at University of Pittsburgh, and a lot of them didn't even know that the counseling center was open or was like giving any service in any shape or form. And I will say it's important to make sure your students know what's available if you're going to make changes, if you're going to offer new things, especially to adapt to the pandemic. Because now that we've gone virtual, the whole peer-to-peer contact and peer-to-peer information exchange is not as effective as it used to be when you were in person on campus. So that's one thing I feel like the University of Pittsburgh can improve on as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Cameron?
Our school is doing a lot of great things. The first thing they really did was they dedicated a web page all for links, resources, telehealth, 24-hour service hotlines. And then in addition to that, they have weekly food drives where anyone could come, they can pick up groceries they need. And it's not just things with a big shelf life. They were fresh produce, fruit, foods that you really need to help maintain both your wellness and well-being. And one thing I think they could have done better is, as Kama said, that peer-to-peer communication is what helped students reach a lot of these resources. And that web page is kind of hidden to some students. They don't know that it exists, where to find it, and it's not as advertised as much as I think it should be.
Awesome, thank you. And I think that's a great value add that your school invested in sharing food and nutrition and things of that nature, because I know that a lot of students may their work life may have shifted and all of that, and their source of nutrition may not be as secure as it was before the pandemic. So that's also very important. Trey, would you like to also add to this question?
Yes, I do. So at my school, we actually, in addition to our counseling services, we just got a health building, kind of for more like our PA students, and then also there are going to be multiple mental health professionals there, so people are able to go there and seek therapy, and also be able to get meds. So I thought, having that is definitely huge and big for my campus and like for our students returning. But I think some students who still don't know about the building or know like what's going to be in there and all the details and stuff about it. So it's like now it's my school's job to say what's going to be in that building, and then also just again the peer-to-peer, what Cam and Kama said definitely is huge with our students.
Awesome, thank you. Any other commentaries before? Yeah.
I was just going to say, Alan, to what you were saying earlier about faculty members' expectations and kind of those maybe not being the most supportive of mental health. I'm wondering if your schools are doing any trainings for faculty or staff to feel prepared to have conversations like this, or if any of them have already told you like our grading is going to look like this, or you're going to get excused absences for mental health or anything along those lines. I know it's still early for you to be getting those kinds of communications.
Hey, would anybody like to add to that as well in terms of what their schools are doing to provide training for their faculty?
Yeah, I guess Robin, to that point, I think one interesting thing is like I think a lot of faculty, they were very understanding when people reached out to them. So like I had a professor that I think I asked her about getting an extension on an assignment once, and I was not expecting her to say yes, but then I think she turned out to be one of like the most understanding professors in our entire department. I think one thing that'll be very helpful in the future is if faculty are very proactive about saying that, like if you have something come up, or if you have Wi-Fi issues or something else happens that prevents you from getting your work done this set, that they will be understanding of it. I guess in terms of grading, like at least for us, I think a lot of departments departments are handling in different ways. So some departments are letting you take your class pass fail and get credit for them. The other departments aren't necessarily allowing that. But I just think like even on a class basis, I think it's important for professors to communicate to students kind of like what the expectations are for the semester, and like, yeah, I guess also just like to reassure students, like, if things aren't perfect, it's okay, and they'll understand. I think that's really important.
And kind of going on, I think it's really important that faculty staff understand that students need mental health days and that it's absolutely okay for them to take it. For me personally, like I take them and I haven't had an issue yet, mainly probably because my professors were psychology and sociology departments, so they understand. But just making it, normal for students to take mental health days and be excused, because you excuse someone that's sick or that had surgery, like you excuse them then, so excuse someone that need a mental health day.
Another thing to add on top of that is I feel like it's really important for faculty to establish an open space for students to come in to talk to them, whether it be about their stresses with the content or how they're struggling in the class. The University of Pittsburgh semester starts on the 19th, so I started receiving syllabi, and so have my friends. And there have been a few syllabi in which faculty members have written, if something comes up, don't contact us. We've already put buffering in the grading scale for it, which is great and all. I appreciate it, but you've already cut off that line of communication right then and there. And just in case there is a student that is struggling, that is experiencing maybe anxiety because of this class in particular, won't feel comfortable to reach out to this professor. And at the end of the day, that's still something that hasn't been addressed, even if there is buffering in the grading scale. And so especially because students have, we have our own like personal expectations with how to do in classes, like it's beyond numbers. So if faculty can maintain open spaces, in office hours, or even like, you let students, email us and all that, I feel like it would really benefit students during this term.
Great. And I remember, Trey, you had a great suggestion during our calls earlier about sort of dedicated space at the beginning of the semester. Would you like to elaborate on that comment?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely what I said earlier, it's validating, letting professors and faculty staff make those one-on-one connections with their students, whether if it's over Zoom or in person, since my campus is going to be face-to-face this fall. Just asking them, like, how's it going? How did the spring and summer go due to COVID? Like, how did that go for you? And just really validating and appreciating like them, let them know that it's okay to be vulnerable. Is highly really important, because most students, like me coming into college, I thought my professor is my go-to person who I'm gonna be not be there for, but go to whenever I need to talk, or if I have a problem about something or an issue. I did have one who's really stuck with me and here with me today, that took that step and came into my life and just supported me through everything, and always let me be honest and just open with myself and things that I just wasn't okay with.
Thank you so much. We've seen a couple of comments following what you shared at the beginning of this conversation in terms of communication. And, what are some suggestions to improve that level of communication and spreading awareness of the resources you have available, since peer-to-peer communication is not as readily available as it was before? What are some suggestions to make sure that the building you have on your campus, Trey, is made more visible, or people are aware where it's located, and again, other resources? And again, anyone, please feel free to chime in.
I definitely think it comes from, I guess, the students and higher administrators to, promote the building more, and just kind of having faculty staff also reach out to the students and let them know what this new building is on the first day of school or first day of classes, and having it in the syllabi as well. Because we have different resources for, so like the technology, when your Wi-Fi is not working, they say go to this building, it's in the syllabi. So let's have in the syllabi, if you need mental health services or someone to talk to, go to this building over here. So definitely it starts with higher administrators and faculty staff with informing the kids what this building is, what it all includes, and how to get over there. And if you need help, I'll take you over there if you need it.
Great, thank you. Anybody else?
Also, yeah. Also, maybe like some little reminders throughout the semester from like the faculty's end at the beginning of the semester, point out the resources if they are included in the syllabi. If like a class is nearing midterms or finals, it's a stressful time for your students, mention, it's okay to access these resources. They're available here. Just little reminders for students as well, because, caught up in the hecticness of a semester, it's easy to forget these things, and like small little reminders are all we need sometimes to just like go out and like reach out for help.
Awesome. The one that I have heard from other administrators and things that schools are doing is that they're leaning more into their social media platforms. Do you find that that's a good resource, and are you finding you and your peers turning to the school's social media platform to look for updates?
I think that's a great resource because especially if, let's say, you're an Active Minds chapter on the campus, you follow other clubs, other organizations, you all follow each other, and you kind of share a big pool of audiences, and partnering with each other and advertising mental health resources and different things to help with your wellness. That kind of builds an even bigger audience, and it reaches more students, especially with campuses that are fully online. You won't have that same in-person outreach. And I think social media does a really great job of getting that message across.
One thing I noticed, I think starting since the spring was like a really huge surge in interest. And like the school social media and any kind of updates that had anything to do with like campus, the school, or student life really. So I think like one really powerful thing could be for like the counseling center to maybe put a statement on social media saying like, we're open, we understand that this is a hard time, but we encourage you to use our resources. Because I feel like I guess like a big part, of students using mental health resources during this time is not really feeling like it's right for them, or maybe not having used counseling before, or just not really being really familiar with it. So I think for a counseling center to put itself out there and say that we welcome you to utilize us, during this time, I think is something that could really speak to students. I think social media is a great way to communicate that.
Awesome. And one other thought for, and Robin, I want to see if hear your thoughts on this. I know Active Minds has a great resource on the role of faculty and sort of this push and pull between faculty being, in the right position to engage and build relationship with students, but also the fact that their responsibility is not to be a mental health expert. So can you talk a little bit more about, again, why it's so important now more than ever for faculty to be there for their students, but also know that they're not solely responsible for, being that mental health person for the students?
Yeah, 100%. I think you've nailed it right on the head, especially if classes are going to be hybrid or mostly remote. Faculty members are largely going to be the campus professionals that students are working with. Even in person, there's going to be fewer people probably dropping in to the tutoring center, for example, or interacting with staff in the way that they might. So knowing the faculty will in a lot of ways be the face of a university to the good majority of the student body, helping them feel prepared to have those conversations is something we're really passionate about. This past year, actually, before all of this, but very well timed with all of this, we worked with ACU, which is the Association of College and University Educators, to do a survey and put out a guide specifically for faculty members called Creating a Culture of Caring, which I think, if it's okay, we'll also link to that in the follow-up email. But we basically spend a lot of time talking about that delineation where faculty members are helpers. They're not clinicians, but they are really they're really knowledgeable about the different resources on campus, about the different policies on campus, about where students can get support, about who on campus could be those clinician helpers. So some of the things that we recommend or that we include as kind of thinking points are some of the things the students have already mentioned, like if there's space on the syllabus to talk about mental health resources, especially right now when things feel a lot more in flux. We talk about normalizing the need for help and talking about like it is a very rough time for everybody, faculty members included. I have a lot of anxiety going into this year. Are also not super sure to some extent how things are going to look in a week, a month, a year. So really normalizing that and showing that faculty do not have all of the answers, despite what we want to think when you're going into your, psychology 101 class, and it seems like they have all the answers, but they don't. We encourage faculty to familiarize themselves with some active listening tools. Active Minds has one called VAR, Validate, Appreciate, Refer, as an example. And we also really encourage faculty to create self-care plans. So just like, we tell students, hey, it's really important that you exercise and eat healthy and get enough sleep. Faculty can always use those reminders, but especially right now in this online world where they might feel the need to be like very in touch all the time, never being able to like leave their office or leave the campus and have that separation. So again, we have that faculty guide. It's called Creating a Culture of Caring. If you search on our website, or we'll send it out. But the students actually beat me to a lot of the points.
Oh, that's great. And one of the things that we saw on our end with a few of our campuses is that, while before the pandemic, they had access to our conversation communication skills training on mental health for faculty and staff, that they saw a really high demand for faculty wanting to gain those skills because they were receiving more students who were reaching out to them because they were the only point of contact that they were having on campus. So we know that oftentimes faculty and staff may not feel comfortable, they may not feel equipped to have those conversations, but many of them are they are still interested in want to be part of that. They want to be able to talk with a student. They just want to find the right ways of having that conversation in a way that doesn't put the pressure on them to be the mental health professional on campus. So thank you for sharing. So we're gonna go to the next question. And again, it's really great timing because a lot of the attendees are asking similar questions. We're going to pivot from the role of campus and the role of faculty in supporting student mental health to talking more about what you all have been doing to support your peers during this time and how have your friends and your other peers have been supporting you. And again, I want to start off with Alan, if you want to share with us how that peer-to-peer support has been going over the last few months.
Yeah. So one project that our student government worked on in the spring was starting like a Buzz at a Distance program where people could meet other students they hadn't met before virtually. So what we did is we had people sign up for the program and then we matched them basically on a random basis. And one really cool thing is like a lot of people actually really appreciated getting to see new people they hadn't met on campus before. And it's something that we really want to do in the fall, especially like with all the new freshmen coming back to campus. Like one thing that a lot of the class 2024 saying was like, I'm really scared I might not be able to meet my classmates or meet upperclassmen. And so that's one thing we've been working on. I guess for me personally, I think another thing that's been super helpful is trying to find, little projects, even like informal things to do with friends on a regular basis. So like, I think I had a reading group with some of my friends this summer and we met pretty regularly, and just having like something constructive that we're doing with your peers and organizing those, I think is a really good way to stay connected.
Awesome, thank you. Cameron, would you like to share?
Sure. The simplest thing is just checking in with each other, seeing how you're doing. That can be really beneficial both to you and the other individual. As well as something I did in my summer class was that on Canvas, most colleges use some iteration of Canvas. It's where like you access your homework, all this. And the professor had left the discussion board open. So just as a student taking that initiative to just type in, how's everyone doing, like weekly check-in discussion board, that can be really cool and really awesome, especially if people respond to it and they continue the conversation. That's a really great way to kind of get that communication among each other.
Wonderful. Kama, would you like to also join in?
So I'll answer this question based on like two different fronts, one on a personal level and then one on a chapter level. But personally, throughout the pandemic, my friends and I have like established days and times in which we'll call each other weekly. And that it's also, to check in with some of my friends that we've started watching shows. And a lot of that is to engage and like mimic that in-person activities that we would do if we could meet each other regularly, but also like that regularity and that routine to also combat the monotone or like the monotonous nature of quarantine. And then on a chapter level, we kept meetings continuing throughout the summer, just so like our members could have a space to like, visit, talk. Even if we were planning, a lot of our meetings were a majority of us just venting, discussing our mental health coping skills, things that were happening. And then we've also done our best to work with other student leaders to reach out to other non-mental health based groups, like more like cultural groups, and just like to invite them to engage in discussions about mental health going into the semester. And also worked with the University Counseling Center to create a peer-led workshop. And all of this is just to prepare for the upcoming semester, to provide more opportunities for students to reach out and like, get that engagement that may not be at the same level as it could have been had we been in person. So.
Trey, would you like to add anything to that?
Yes, and then kind of as well, looking at two levels, personal level and chapter level. Personal level, I have to say, my really good friend who, kind of been on me about working out and stuff. We, finally got the chance to, do that together, and it's been like really helpful. We're just doing at-home workouts, obviously, but just being able to do that with him, that was really helpful. He supported me and I supported him about 50% of the time. I didn't really want to work out, but just having, that friend just there and like doing an at-home workout with you, that was definitely a big help for me. And then as far as a chapter level, in my group chat with my executive board and my members, from time to time, someone will just send some little positive message or a reminder to take care of yourself today. And I often get mines almost every day because they're always like, you're always doing so much, take care of yourself. Like you tell us all the time, like you do it too. And I'm just like, I needed that. And I appreciate that. But they're always just sending things in the group like, okay, do this today, or I'm doing this monthly mental health challenge this month, or I just picked up this thing for self-care, like for myself, maybe you should try it. And just having that just there, honestly, every day, it helped me get through each day that we've been in since the pandemic started. So just, building that team and having that team of, just a friend group of connection and connecting that way is really helpful.
Awesome, thank you. And so, one of the things that the questions that have also come up is, how do you engage, your fellow students? So as Active Minds chapter presidents and leaders, how do you engage, or how are you planning to, and I know Robin shared some of this earlier, but how are you planning to engage students on campus to increase their coping skills, to increase some healthy habits? Like, what are some suggestions and ways? And maybe for, a lot of the audience here today are mental health professionals on campus, or they are part of the student services group on campus. So what are some recommendations for partnering with Active Minds to increase or share some of those best practices and tips for students to engage in? And again, Robin, if you want to share as well, and then I also want to invite the rest of the group to add in.
Yeah, some of y'all want to go first and I can fill in gaps. Or if you need a second to think. I'm seeing some give me a second to think.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, in the spring, we were seeing a lot of chapters, like Kama said, kind of continuing to have regular meetings or regular programs in obviously an adapted format. But a lot of chapters were including their counseling center in that. So whereas there's been challenges, maybe students who had never really thought about counseling before were curious about it. A lot of chapters were bringing their counselors into those meetings and having them talk about their favorite self-care strategy, or doing a 5-minute mindfulness meditation to kind of give people a taste of that. To both like normalize like, hey, these people aren't scary. These are just humans who like to laugh and also have cute dogs that they can show off. I know, Kama, your chapter's done a lot about normalizing therapy and what that process looks like. But yeah, we've seen a lot of chapters being really creative on social media and having challenges or 31 days of mental health, doing takeovers, even of their university's Instagram story for the day to talk about, hey, I'm so and so, I'm the president of our Active Minds chapter. We do this. Here's my favorite self care strategy. Like, write back what's yours, and sharing those throughout. So, really, both the professionals on campus partnering with the students to disseminate the information widely and get students to show up to things like info sessions or things that they might not normally come to, and also elevating student voices wherever they can be in the university level to make sure they're represented, make sure that the resources they want getting out to students are actually making their way through that peer network, and hearing from students about what they want, to see more or less or different of. Did that give you all some time to think? Okay, cool.
At the
oh.
no, okay. At the University of Pittsburgh chapter, we've had a lot of various initiatives that were started before the pandemic, but we've kind of adapted them well for the pandemic. For example, we have peer education that we take to different clubs, and like these are based off of Active Minds resources such as VAR and like how to talk to your friends, how to help them out and have these conversations about mental health. We have a peer education on what is therapy that's also been adapted for COVID to like talk more about telehealth and like what the resources are on campus and off campus and how to access them. And then other ways that has been really helpful for our chapter in like conducting outreach is one, talking with other clubs, whether even if they're not mental health advocacy clubs, and then also connecting with our university counseling center. So there are a few mental health related clubs on campus, and like we all together regularly meet with the director of our counseling center to provide feedback, to ask what changes they're making so we can bring that information to the students as well. And like that loop of communication has been really helpful and hopefully will continue to be really helpful in facilitating outreach and also like giving a bit of credibility to like all the information we do give out. And so it's like a link between administration and students that's been helping us a lot.
And as Robin mentioned, we partnered with our mental health clinicians and the Center for Wellness and Wellbeing and did a whole person care and tools to share webinar. And then during finals week, our chapter members did a stress less event where we kind of showcased what we do to manage our stress, especially during finals. So we had students show off their cooking skills. I did like a 5-minute exercise. Another one of our members did a guided meditation. It was just really great, and we got a lot of positive feedback from that.
I can't really answer this question that much, just because my chapter is still fairly new. We got recognized a week before spring break, and then obviously coming back, we couldn't really do anything. But I do got to say that our biggest thing was promoting our organization and just kind of posting, mental health notes and tips and self-care, and all that information was definitely helpful for students because they're like, oh my God, like I'm excited, like, this is here now. Like I've always wanted like something like this on campus. And just hearing that, and then we also had a few who like reached out and like, okay, like where do I go on campus for if I want to seek a counselor, or where do I go like for this or that? And then like just seeing someone reach out privately, obviously, it, just meant a lot to me that people are like seeing, they're hearing. And it takes, a student to be able to speak up about mental health on campus, and that's how you get the students who want to seek help.
Alan, would you like to add anything else before we transition?
Yeah, so we don't have an active chapter at my school yet, but I think this conversation has inspired me to possibly get that process started. So thanks for hosting this. I guess in terms of things that like my task force and student government has been working on, I think echoing comment, like I think one important thing is just been relaying feedback to our counseling and psychological services. So like I know like when we transitioned the spring, after the spring, we reached out to a lot of students about their experiences and really tried to pass that feedback on to CPS. In terms of like the fall, I think our counseling center is developing some new programs like listening circles for students to have like group sessions. And so that's something we've also kind of been involved just in like passing on student feedback, getting inputs. I'm getting input. So yeah, just trying to involve our peers as much as possible. I think that's really the big goal.
Thank you. One thing that I heard you all mention a few times is this feedback, right? Sharing feedback. And I think, Cameron, you had a great comment before when we were talking about this webinar. And so I want to, and I'll start off with you, but I want to hear your thoughts about how should administrators, from the very top to departments to mental health services, think about collecting feedback from students, because I think it's so critical. Now that everybody's in varying learning situations, online or in person, how should they be thinking about collecting feedback from students, both positive and negative, during this time?
I think you could go two routes. You can have that sort of anonymous feedback through like a Google survey or through Rate My Professors. Or the second one could be like a little, it's not really anonymous, but you can ask your students to email you saying what worked, what didn't work, what challenges did you face throughout my curriculum. As well as one thing I really want to say that's important is praise your professors who did things that were good, like they decided to drop your 3 lowest quiz scores, or they decided that there's no need for a final. Those things that really helped you with your wellness, you should, I encourage you to thank them and appreciate them, and also give constructive feedback as well as positive feedback.
Yeah, I agree with Cameron that the positive feedback aspect of it is very important. Often, or at least I've seen this with students at Pitt, is when it comes to doing teacher surveys, you're more inclined to write about what went wrong in the surveys rather than what went right. And so maybe emphasizing, asking students, what worked really well for you with this service. It doesn't necessarily have to be only like professors. It could be the counseling center services and other initiatives that the university is putting out. And then on top of that, maybe be more regular with surveying students rather than leaving it all for the end of the semester. If it's something that's more consistent, it also like may help out with adapting these services and changing things throughout the semester. Because rather than testing it semester by semester, if we test it multiple times in a semester, that development of something that you want to create may happen faster.
Great suggestion.
I think another thing will be really good for professors and faculty staff to do is, creating like a journal for a student. We'll have every student bring a journal to class, and like each day before class, maybe write out what they're feeling or how their day is going, or and basically like having the professor create like different topics about different things. And I think that will be a way for the students to just, because it's writing in their journal for one, and then it's just being tossed to the professor. And I've had this done my freshman year of college, and it was definitely helpful to be able to just write out what I was feeling, which led me into doing it on my own personally, which it still helps me until this day. So definitely that's something that the faculty staff can implement this year.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to say a lot of our chapters have worked with their administrators or counseling centers to send out those kind of one-off 3 or 5 question surveys. You might not get the most statistically significant response. You might not get, 5,000 responses, but the responses you get will probably have something to say and something to think about while you're thinking about what can be done better. And like Kama said, finding opportunities to solicit that positive feedback along with the constructive feedback can be really powerful because, as we mentioned, a lot of faculty and a lot of staff are they've learned from the spring, but the spring was kind of its own example of crisis. So, recognizing the ones who are going above and beyond right now and the ones who are still learning, but appreciating the fact that they're owning that they're still learning has been really powerful, I think, for students, as well as sitting on committees or task forces around, COVID response, student life and COVID response, whatever it is, wherever there could be a student voice in those high level conversations. Generally, students feel a lot more heard and represented, and students are able to very passionately and powerfully talk to their peers about, we heard this specific piece of feedback. It's something we're definitely interested in doing, but for this moment right now, this is what we're able to do, and it's really cool, and you should check it out. So it could be really beneficial on all sides.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to pick a couple of questions that have come in through the chat that are very similar. So it looks like a lot of our attendees are doing mental health training on campus, whether in person or online. And it looks like it's covering, addressing some of the needs for faculty. But I would love to hear your thoughts on, providing mental health training or some sort of training to students for peer-to-peer support. What your thoughts are, what's your school doing already that may be beneficial for other schools that are on the call?
I would say my school is doing, which they've been doing, is mental health first aid training. And that's, basically in that training, you're going to learn about kind of like the top basic mental disorders, and then also how to help a friend, and, also like figure out how to help yourself as well. But that's something that we've been having on our campus, and outside of the Active Minds are funding for our students to take that training, and also open it up for our faculty, so that way, because the past they had to pay for it, and I feel like it shouldn't, be that like that. So I felt as president of my chapter, I think, having it free for our faculty staff as well would highly be crucial.
And if I can add,
Cameron, you go first.
sorry. Okay. And if I can add, in addition to doing the mental health first aid training, we've done VAR training. And what we like to do is reach out to various professors, like psychology professors, and we like to ask them if they would offer an extra credit opportunity for students who attend this, because you typically will have like a registry, and where students will sign in and sign out, so that can for the professors, and that helps get a really wide range of audience members. And at the end, a lot of people will say, oh, I came here for the extra credit, but I learned a really valuable resource. That's really important.
And if I could just real quick, VAR or VAR, which Cameron and Kama have also mentioned, is an Active Minds active listening resource developed by students, meant to be a kind of student conversation. So if you go to activeminds.org/VAR, you can learn about that, and I guess we can also send information about it. But Kama, you go ahead.
Specifically, what our student government board and administration have been doing is student org leaders are trained in Campus Connect, which is a suicide prevention initiative that also discusses kind of the concepts of VAR in terms of how to have these conversations about mental health with a friend. And so student leaders are trained in that, and then mental health first aid training and the Campus Connect, and another version of just talking with students. These services / trainings are also available through the counseling center. And so there are official means of learning more about these topics and these situations. And so that's something that Pitt's been doing and providing.
Anything to add, Alan?
Yeah, so I guess in addition to Kognito training, which is required for all first years at Princeton, we also have a program called Princeton Distress Awareness and Response, which sounds pretty similar to what you had mentioned, at UPitt. So departments, student organizations can register to have their leadership or members do this training. It's an opt-in process, but it's, I guess it's another way of engaging faculty and student leaders, in mental health on campus.
Thank you very much. Awesome. So Mindful of time, we're almost at the hour. I did want to just leave on the last question, which is question number 6, which is, what are you hopeful for as you return to campus, and what do you want to share with, again, with the audience here who are administrators, staff members? What would you share that you're looking forward to for the return to campus for this fall and spring?
Okay, so 2 things that I'm looking forward to is, one, as student leaders, a lot of student leaders on campus have been working towards planning for the semester, to plan like virtual events to engage the student body. So I'm hopeful that even though you're in your room, students will take the initiative to actually engage in these events and learn more from all the discussions, panels, and all the activities that are happening. And then, similar to what I had mentioned before, I hope the university is more proactive in sending out information about changes that are occurring, about resources that are available. That way students have a steady flow of information coming at them throughout the semester, just to decrease any anxiety or any confusion that could occur, and to encourage good mental health practices.
Anything else?
One thing I'm really looking forward to I guess whenever we go back to campus is for communities to be a lot more inclusive. I think like one really interesting thing that I've kind of observed is like being off campus and only being able to connect with people virtually is that people are really longing for a human connection, opportunity to meet others. And I hope that that's something that continues as we go back on campus, so people are more willing to reach out to each other, get to know other people, welcome people into their communities or organizations. That's one thing I'm very hopeful for. And I guess like more on a much more specific level, I really hope that there are efforts that are made towards helping students navigate mental health resources on campus, and making sure that everybody is aware of how to access counseling, psychological services, what's the best way to find help, what kind of peer support systems are there. So yeah, those are like 2 big things I would love to see once we're back.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? Awesome. I want to thank each and every one of you for your time today. Trey, Alan, Cameron, Robin, for the opportunity to have this discussion, and for all the work that you continue to do on campus to be a mental health advocate and bring these resources to the students. I wish you the best of luck in your semester. And I also want to thank all of the attendees that joined today for the last hour. I know that this is going to continue to evolve over the next few weeks. So be patient, be kind to yourself, and stay safe. Bye. Thank you.
Is it just me who can't figure out how to